celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm Brittany Tarwater, and I believe anything is possible.
This is Anything is Possible. I'm Hallerin Hilton Hill, part 2 of my interview with Brittany Tarwater, who, in full disclosure, we work at the same station. She's a great friend, but I just am a fan of you. And not just your work, which congratulations on winning 3 Emmys for the great documentary that you did, but just watching you develop as a person has been I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you and your husband and your family and the way you're doing life and growing through life.
Thank you.
And thank you for the willingness to be transparent about your journey, especially as you've been telling us your story about your mom. And just to catch you up on the story, middle school, high school, you have a difficult relationship with your mother. The way you described it was, you said you were too immature to understand her struggles and her contributions. And the best way you found to deal with that, the tension between the two of you, was to wall yourself off from it. To move away, to lock yourself into your career as a swimmer and then your aspirations as a journalist and anchor. And if you don't have to deal with it, if it's not there. But then we reach these inflection points in life, and your mother is literally on her deathbed. You've been called in, and you're spending more time with her, and maybe it's the obligation of a daughter to a mother, but there's still that distance and that tension. She's an atheist. Your faith is essential to you, and your faith is calling you to be something that your flesh is resisting. Is that
It's spot on.
So you go to see your mother. She asks you about your faith. She has a devotional. What are you, as an atheist, doing with a devotional? And she said, "Oh, things have changed." So maybe pick it up from there.
Yeah, sure. So this was not long in my last visit to her when we had that conversation. And then maybe 2 weeks later, maybe a week later, she had lost her ability to speak. So we knew time was coming. And I got a phone call, and it said, "Mom," on my phone. I thought, well, surely it's my sister or someone just calling from her phone. And I picked up the phone, and it was her. She said, "Hi, sweetie pie. I just want you to know that I'm going to die today, and I love you." And I just told her I knew where she was going, and I'd see her again. That was it. And she was right.
She was right, because she was going to die that day. Did you feel resolved or unresolved?
I felt very much resolved. It was, all the heaviness of being angry with someone was gone.
I don't know. The name of my show is Anything is Possible. I've spent a lot of time talking to people about success and ambition, and people frame success in terms of
Sure. Yeah.
right hardware but the older I get and the more I do this work, for me, the richness is in the possibility of new beginnings. That you can go through and you can grow through things in your life that seem insurmountable. And it seems like the most insurmountable things are the things on the inside, right? And for you to climb that mountain, for you to, for God to give you the grace to deal with that and to resolve that and can you imagine all the years, the stuff you were holding, the stuff she was feeling, the way that energy gets in and on the people around you. So how, have you thought about that as well?
No, I haven't. But my husband has really taught me how to offer grace and the power of redemption, and that's real. And how to be vulnerable with people. Because I think part of that is just to protect yourself from really the fear of people finding out who you really are.
Yeah.
So a lot of that I've seen through my husband and through Doug Bannister, who is
God.
just
Phenomenal.
Wonderful person, very influential and impactful person in my life. He married us. Married all of us in our family, and he's just was one of the first people to tell me that I needed to go repair the relationship with my mom, Davis and Doug, and my father-in-law Dwight, and people around me who encourage that.
Possibility powered by Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
My veil was always, if you came back here, you would see that it's empty, that I'm not a good enough reporter. I'm not
Not the fastest swimmer.
I'm not the fastest. I'm not really even very smart.
Now you can listen while you're on the go with Anything is Possible, the podcast.
And this is for anybody watching that is harboring any type of unforgiveness. You don't get away clean. It's doing something to you. It's going to show up. It's going to show up in the way it affects all of the relationships around you. And if you can find your way to forgiveness, it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's a God thing. But then there's another part of this that I wanted to speak to that's coming up for me here. And that is this. You said all of us have this primal fear that if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me, right?
Oh yes.
And it's just a. So we create our avatars, we present them to the world. The problem with that is people fall in love with the avatar. They fall in love with this synthetic placeholder we've created for people to love. And they fall in love with that. Our self-awareness knows You like that image. You have no idea who I am. You have no idea who I am. And you notice the distance between. And that distance has a feeling. The beautiful thing about taking the risk to be known is that you find out, number one, it is a great, it's a great way to change the oil. It's a great way to clean the oven, because all of the people who don't really care about you are going to be removed, right?
Yeah.
But then what happens is the people who really love you show up, and you get to know for sure, finally, that someone would choose to love that you. And that quality of love is way better than having somebody be in love with an image of you. And I don't think we can know that until we cross that transom of forgiveness, because that's what you had to choose to do with your mother. Not the mother I wish you were, not I just love you. I forgive you. I see you. It makes sense to me how you could be broken and have all of this other complexity in your life, because you're a human being just like, does any of this make sense to you?
Oh, yes.
What does that bring up for you?
Spot on. I just, my veil was always, if you came back here, you would see that it's empty, that I'm not a good enough reporter. I'm not very.
Not the fastest swimmer.
I'm not the fastest. I'm not really even very smart. Like I don't know enough about the Bible. I don't know like all of my vulnerabilities, and that I just believe is just the enemy trying to isolate you from God, from community, from family, from being the best friend, the best parent, the best spouse, the best that you can be. And it helps me to see that so I can say, well, wait a minute.
Talk about the freedom on the other side of that, though.
Oh.
How do you feel now?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I've nailed it. I'm not sure that I'm still a work in progress. But there certainly, and it helps you to understand other people, I think.
Here's another thing that I've discovered. You got me talking.
Yeah, go on, man.
I like to listen.
Well, same, because we're doing.
You're a storyteller. You're a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I was watching this master class with Michael Lewis, who wrote Moneyball and all these other great books, The Big Short. And what he said was, you really do need to live some life to get in touch with humanity. Because as a storyteller, it's hard to even see or sense somebody's story if you don't know pain. If you don't know, he was talking about this, he was working on this one book, The Premonition or whatever, and he was working with this lady who was an infectious disease specialist, and he asked her if he could spend a day in her house, if she would leave the house and if he could just go through her house. And under protest, she tells him yes, and he noticed in her bathroom, she had all these affirmations, and those affirmations showed him that she really was unsure that anybody would like her, right? And he told that part of her story in the book, and she was mad at first for this very same reason. If people ever discovered who I really was. But that's exactly what she needed. And what got him there, though, was the death of one of his children. And knowing the pain of loss helped him recognize pain. And, you know, I think of all the years that I've been telling stories and doing this work, it is the pain in my own experience that allows me to see you today as you are. Otherwise, I'd be talking about that.
Yeah, you and I both know that doesn't matter.
Right. When the real important thing is you are good enough.
Yeah.
Because God says so, right?
Yes.
You are worthy enough. You are exactly who he created you to be. I wouldn't know it without my own brokenness. Does that make? And so I thank you for being willing to be that vulnerable, because if it connects me, it's probably connecting whoever's on the other side of that lens. So
I think you and I have had a lot of hard conversations and have shared a lot of details. We've been friends for a long time, and we've shared a lot of details about our lives, and some stuff I haven't shared with very many other people. You have a way of listening you have a way of hearing people. I think that lets people be willing to be vulnerable and to share more of who they are. But I think about too, like, if God made me perfectly in exactly the way that he intended to make me, it's got to be good enough for me, right? And I hope you see that too.
Yeah, well, see, my thing is, I knew we were going to have a great conversation. I didn't know it would be this conversation. This was not part of the...
Same. I'm like, I don't know what direction this could go.
Now, take us with you with Anything is Possible, the podcast. Stream new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
But I will say this, I love story. I love storytelling. And I mentioned this a number of times. Robert McKee is a guy that I studied storytelling under. And one of the things he said was write the truth. First of all, he said the truth will always cut through. It just does. But he said to have a story, you have to have a main character. You have a setting, but you have to have crisis and then resolution. And you don't have a story. I remember we were in this screenwriting workshop, and he said, when you want to introduce character, the first thing you do is you bring another person or an event into a person's life that is a moment of crisis, because it will reveal character. It'll show you what they're made of, put them in a tough situation. But it also, not only will it reveal who they are, but it will refine who they are. Those moments that we have in our lives that challenge us, change us. And, you know, just in the telling of your story, just seeing the arc of your career, I can see how all of that is conspiring to make you an even better version of yourself.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think when I approach storytelling, I try not to write the story before I get to the story, before I hear the story or learn the story, because often it's easy to create the narration that you want, right? So I try really hard not to write the story before I know the story. And you got to write the truth, but also in this case for me, you got to tell the truth. So, like I said, coming to Knoxville, I had the chance to be who I wanted to be, but I think it's also important to be who you are and share those truths.
That's an interesting thing, is being who you want to be and being who you are and getting to that point in your life where who you want to be is who you are.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember Miles Davis was trying to sound like all these different trumpet players. And he said, it took me a long time to sound like myself.
I feel that so deeply.
What are your ambitions going forward?
Going forward. Well, I teach at the University of Tennessee. I recently accepted a bigger role there, so I really enjoy working with young people, and I just hope that I can share some of what I've learned along the way and continue in my journey as a storyteller.
What are you sharing with young people when you are pouring into young people? When you are, like, if you had 16-year-old Brittany sitting here with this Brittany, what do you say to her now, knowing what you know now?
It gets good. It gets good. I'm glad I didn't know, just for having to go through it. But I would want to say to her that it gets good. It gets hard first, but it gets good. But in the classroom, I don't know what I'm telling them. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Brittany Tarwater, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I wish you much success. I think we got the title of your book now. It Gets Good. Right? I think that's going to be a great thing. And thank you for being so transparent with your story. We love seeing you on television. We love all the work you do in our community. We love the way you're going to bless students at the university, and who knows what's next, but I know it gets good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.